Only you can crown yourself, and we need leaders like you doing just that. We are in uncharted territory on this planet where many of us are learning that we must elevate and sophisticate the technology of our human spirit and energy in order to thrive above the pressure of these computerized times, and then help others do the same. I'm your host, Shakti Sita of The Palace, and this podcast is designed to help you thrive during this really special time in history. Reach your very highest potential, find deeper self-sovereignty, and live your most exalted life. So, making decisions is part of every single person's life and a huge part of business. And I have noticed how myself, others, businesses, all of the things really get hung up on the decision-making process. And actually, McKinsey even found that 20% of respondents to their McKinsey Global Survey say that their organizations excel at decision-making, meaning 80% of them do not. And they recognize that, and the majority of these companies say that the time that they devote to decision making is used ineffectively. There's massive amounts of time being wasted on not being able to make decisions. And the thing that I learned working in television news is first wins. Just be first. You don't have to be accurate. You don't have to be right. It doesn't have to be true. Just be first. And what we would do is we would just hedge all the language. We'd be like, allegedly, there's a shooter at this. And, reportedly, reports coming in out of our nation's capital, that, And as long as we were the first to air with that story, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. And maybe it is. And then in that case, we're like the champions because we got to air first. That has, of course, come around to bite some news organizations in the butt, because sometimes they do go to air with completely inaccurate information that then they have to walk back, and that's never fun. But the principle of this quickness and then kind of like act now, apologize later is a little bit ingrained in me, and it might be why I am inherently quicker at making decisions than a lot of other people. It could also be because I'm an Aries, but we all have Aries somewhere in our astrological birth chart. And that's the pioneer energy. That's just the quick impulsiveness. And impulsiveness, for some reason, the word impulsive has like this negative sort of connotation, but I think it's like one of the best qualities anyone can have, because if you're impulsive and you just take action, at least you're doing something. And that's how anything gets started and anything gets created. So even if you do like kind of mess up along the way, like, if you're getting 95% of the shots though, like who cares about the 5% you didn't get? At least you got the 95 other percent of them. Whereas someone who's just kind of sitting around with no spark, movement, or anything whatsoever has created exactly 0%. And actually, Jeff Bezos even says, this is a quote from him. He says, if you're good at course correcting, being wrong may be less costly than you think. So there's also an element of like, if you know how to get back on course, then does it really matter if you get a couple of decisions wrong? No. And the decision-making process on a day-to-day can really, the speed at which things manifest is directly proportional to how fast you can make decisions. It's absolutely correlated. Now, what I have noticed in creating the Palace is how funny it is to notice the things I can't make decisions on. Like, for example, one of them is the yoga mats for the studio. I have looked at every single yoga mat on the entire market, and I have not found part of the reason I haven't been able to decide is because I haven't seen one that completely matches my vision. It might not exist yet. But the other part is that there's got to be some sort of insecurity around it too. It's just that's the fact. That is the brutal truth of decisions is that if you can't make a decision, it's because there's some insecurity inside that says, oh, if I make the wrong decision here, something's going to go wrong. I'm not going to be worthy. I'm not going to matter. Something's going to happen. I'm going to be a bad person, blah, 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 blah. And because of those like negative thoughts, they completely cloud and cripple any decision from being made, because God forbid you make the wrong decision. And, so and the good news is I picked a mat, I think. We'll see. If they're purple, then by the time this airs, then yes, I did pick the mat. If they're not purple, then I did go back on the decision. It doesn't matter though. This is the thing. It doesn't matter. I can always buy new mats. It's really, and it's such a minute detail. And, it's funny. Just notice something in your life right now that like you just can't make a decision on, and like chew on it with me while you're listening to me talk about this, because it's highly revealing to the internal workings of your brain and your whole body system. The insecurity thing though is really, really fascinating, because at the core of insecurity is this kind of feeling that like we don't matter, or that like we've lost touch with who we are, really, because at our core, who we are is part of this universe, and we are the universe, and we've just lost our contact with infinity. Because if you wake up, if you meditate, and you do the things, and you've gotten back up to your high level, your perch where you've become one with infinity again, you're kind of okay with whatever, and you have this high level perspective, then making little decisions is like whatever, like no biggie. But if you like crawl down into the details of the thing, and you lose that perspective, it can feel like a matter of life and death. Like, oh my God, if I pick the wrong mat, like the whole thing could crumble just like that. Like all this was for waste because I picked the wrong mat. It's crazy. But that's how we are. Now the thing though, so again, I've worked with a lot of clients. And when I work with clients in the business capacity, I had PR clients. I was a chief communications officer for a company, CCO, and a COO. And so I've been inside. And what I've seen with every single leadership board or people or whatever that I've worked with is that the best ones make quick decisions. They say yes, they say no. They don't need everyone's opinion. The slowest decisions and the worst decisions usually correspond to one another. And there's definitely a correlation between how long a decision takes to be made and how good of a decision it was, from my opinion and my experience. I haven't been able to find any data on that, but the more people that we talk to, the more customer data we collected, the more everything, where we ignored the intuition of the executives. It was just never as good of a decision. And sometimes we would completely miss the opening, like the window where like you make the decision and then like the massive impact happens is there's a window there. And if you miss that, like then the decision is irrelevant. So some decisions do need to be made with speed. And then not making a decision is also a decision. So if you're sitting around and you're waiting to make a decision, not making it is you have committed to a certain outcome. That's my dog coughing. Okay, so then one of the people that I admire so greatly on this topic is Gary Vaynerchuk. He is obsessed with just making quick decisions. He's literally like, he's on video, like making a million decisions like all day long in the middle of like other meetings, making decisions about other things. He's a yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And the thing is the reason he's able to do that is because he's super right with himself, meaning he's sitting in a very neutral position and he's not scared of making the wrong decision. And part of him not being scared of making the wrong decision is partly the way that he was brought up, and he talks about that all the time, is that he feels very supported by his parents in the way that he was brought up. And when you have that kind of upbringing, you do have a steady foundation that you feel that the universe has your back, that you are supported in whatever decision you're making. If you kind of come from a more unstable upbringing, sometimes it doesn't feel like things are going to work out for you. And that's a much bigger hurdle, and that does slow down your decisions. But if you can get to the point where you can feel that the universe is going to support whatever decision you make, and that whatever decision you make is the right decision, there is no wrong decision, then you can make quick ones, accurate ones, fast ones, all of it. So, Gary goes, he says the right decision is always the fastest decision. He says, ultimately what matters most is speed. Speed trumps everything. I love that. That's like such music to my ears. It just like, it feels good. Does that feel good to you guys? Cause if we're going to sit around and like talk about things, it's like, you've lost me. So, I'm so bored. He says, instead of trying to make perfect decisions, because this is the problem, we try to make the perfect one where everyone's needs will be met and everything will be satisfied, and we've mitigated the risks, and we've weighed all the things, and we have the data to back it up, and we have all these, like, oh my God, stop it. Debating is often an insecurity in disguise, he says. And it's true. It's like, if you need other people's opinions, like, why? Because you don't want the burden of being the person who made the decision. Like, are you big enough to carry the outcome of the decision that you make? Because every decision has a lot of outcomes. And again, we're going for speed, we're going for accuracy, and that means that's a lot of outcomes that you're going to have to deal with, 5% of which might not be the outcomes that you desired or anywhere near them. And even of the desired outcomes, that might require you to step into being a different type of person or act a different way, or, have new, bigger, better problems. So, it comes with a lot of baggage. The example that's coming to mind right now that I didn't think of before I hit record, but I went to Bucknell University, and one of the main courses that everyone does is Management 101. And it's such a cool course because we actually create a business. Like, it's a legitimate business, and we sell a product and we make money, and then we donate all the money to charity, and like we actually like go and do good in the community with the money that we make from this business. And this is all over the course of a semester. So in the beginning of the semester, we all have to pick a position within the company. And I was the press secretary, media manager, of course, because that's what I was into. And we were selling these zip up sweatshirts with this little like bison on it. It was an American Apparel sweatshirt. We completely sold out of them. It was amazing. We made a lot of money, and we donated it all and built shelters for these dogs, this dog shelter up the street. It was really special. But in the middle of it, we had to pick the color of what sweatshirts we were going to sell. And like, this is where like decisions need to be made. And we have like 25 people in our company, and every single person needs to weigh in on this. And not only that, we had to send surveys out to the whole student body because our teachers had to. So we have all the survey data, and then we also have the opinions of everyone in the room. And the survey data, like, it's pretty clear. If you have to make a decision, and we had to do the survey data, it's like clear that like, okay, just pick the first 3 that came back on the surveys. Like, clearly that's what people want to buy. But we had this one girl who was like, nope, we need to get the forest green sweatshirts because the football players were telling me that they like forest green. Well, forest green was like number 8 on the list of like the color sweatshirts that we should be printing on. And I'm like, that makes no sense. I'm sorry. And then it ended up being like this whole thing because like I broke decorum because, God forbid someone like, causes a scene through disagreement. And, I wouldn't back down basically. So she was like, no, well, I think blah, blah, blah. And I think she may have been the CEO position. She might have been, which is probably why it's quote unquote breaking decorum for me to be like, no, I think you're wrong. And, so yeah, I caused a scene because I completely disagreed with her. Other people disagreed with her, but they didn't care. And then, she's the CEO, so she's going to make the decision. And I'm like, okay, fine, live with it, have fun. And then we didn't get our investment that we needed because basically we have to present the whole plan, including what colors we're getting and why and all this stuff to the investment board. And then they wouldn't give us the investment because it made no sense why we would pick forest green because it's 7th on the list of survey responses. Duh. But anyway, so this is like a little microcosm of like, it's just clear what the decision is, but you make the wrong one because you're probably not right with yourself and you're insecure and you want to appease the football players, instead of get the investment money to make your company successful. Extrapolate that out to whoever else you're giving away your power to and ignoring the neutral or factual situation. I've seen a lot of people really F it up big time. And when you're making decisions from a place of lack, from a place of insecurity, from all those things, then you should not be making quick decisions. You shouldn't be making any decisions. Like you should go take a nap. The only time that you should really be like making the quick decisions is when you're in your pocket of power and you're sitting comfortably in some sort of neutral zone or access to neutral zone where you can see clearly the whole field or enough of the field where you have your intuitive hits of this way, not that way, this way, not that way. And if you're not there, like then don't make the quick decisions. Don't pander, that's for sure. Or don't pander to your own insecurity when making your decisions. That will hurt you. So here's what Yogi Bhajan says, master of Kundalini Yoga. He says, the executive mind is a projective mind. It moves actions and resources. A lot of people fail because they can't or won't decide things. They hesitate and lose the timing or become doubtful and lose the leadership. They will discuss things, shuffle papers, and plan. The executive mind decides in seconds. When you have difficult decisions, like a surgeon dealing with life and death, the mind is essential. So don't sit around shuffling papers. Don't be that guy. Really, like you might even be while you're listening to this. I hope that this is inspiring you to like, if there is that decision that like, your yoga mat, like for me, it's the yoga mats. For you, it's something else. There's something that's like, you just can't make the decision on for some reason. And it's much deeper. It's not just because it's like yoga mats, like it's one click, you have the money, all the things. You have all the reasons, you have the pro-con list, but there's the deeper reason why you're not making the decision is where the gold is. So if you can go down into that, get into a meditative space and figure out what's really blocking you from making the decision, then you can proceed. And then you can make more decisions and quicker decisions and move faster. And hopefully, just live a happy, fun life, because then things are going to manifest quicker and things will come into reality quicker. I had this moment that I realized that, building businesses is really just making decisions. It's literally like, here's my list of decisions I need to make today. And the quicker I can just decide on these things, the quicker the whole business comes together. If you have the money, which money is just, I mean, that's just an energy. So also like if you're thinking you can't make the decisions because you don't have the money, analyze that, because it's likely a feeling that the universe isn't supporting you, or a feeling of lack or something of that nature. So if you can get under that, unhook that a little bit and then proceed, it might help. But yeah, I realized that it's actually just a bunch of comes back to computer programming. It's just a bunch of ones and zeros. It's yes and no and yes and no. And if you sit around and you put the blinders on and you start scrolling Instagram and you're like, you know what, I'm not going to make this decision today, or I'm not ready to make this decision, fine, that's fine. You're entitled to take as long as you want to make the decision. But if you want to create and create profusely and intensely and just, be like a fire hose, like, you got to make the decisions and keep directing it where to go. The energy is moving and it's your job to direct it. It wants to move through you. It wants to use you, and you have to just keep directing it. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, in these types of way, the path that it needs to go. You can't turn it off. And the second that you try to turn the energy off that's moving through you, you become destructive. So make decisions. Don't become destructive. Just make the decision. On that note, I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening today. Let me put it this way. You just made the best decision of your whole day by listening to this podcast. So just keep doing you. You're doing amazing, and I'm rooting for you, and you got this. I support any decision you make as long as it's a decision that you made for you.